Good afternoon, everybody. I have decided to make a video essay just to try some other format, which may be informative. Without further ado, let's get started. To provide the necessary context, I'll briefly explain what started all of this. Voss is a pretty large content creator and had a debate with Professor Flowers, a small content creator. The debate was largely about colonize and decolonization. Eventually, they disagreed with each other on an apparently contentious issue, and afterwards it became a drama content mine, as almost everyone jumped on the debate. Even though this has been over 9 months, it is apparently still a largely discussed issue. I don't want to waste time going over all of this drama. However, I do want to go over a specific YouTube channel named SoulBuddy. They posted 2 videos. The first video is almost exclusively about the debate between Voss and Professor Flowers, and talking about the issues of white debate bros. The second video is about Professor Flowers specifically. It's about online racism and some of her positions. The first thing we need to address is how valid data can lead to wrong conclusions. For example, 1350 is a popular racist talking point. It means that despite black people making up 30% of the population, they commit 50% of the crimes. This is implying that being black makes you more violent. It is tied to your skin color or your DNA. This is a racist conclusion, even though the statistics are true. Another important example how statistics are framed is by looking at raw numbers instead of percentages. This becomes clear when often conservatives talk about police killing more white people in total than black people. In this specific case, they aren't accounting for the amount of black people there are in proportion to how many are killed by police. It is important to recognize these obfuscations. Without further ado, let's see how SoulBunny opens their first video.
In this video, I'm giving a general summary and speaking on what stuck out to me. For a deeper analysis, I suggest you to watch the source material linked below. Online leftist spaces, dominated and led by white leftists, truly was an unexpected roller coaster. The first half of 2021, I was almost daily engaged with their content on YouTube. The latter end of the year was me counteracting the hate and the deeply embedded problems with white leftism and debate bro culture.
Black people are more homophobic than white people by a pretty significant amount.
What do you view reparations as, more importantly?
So this is a big divide. Some people think like cash payments. I'm not a big fan of that. It doesn't fix the problem, for one. I'm a big fan of structural reparations, not based on race, but rather based on targeting neighborhoods that need it the most. Some of these neighborhoods are like white. What is that? So 300 years ago, their dad showed up and they were born 18 generations later, and that means they're a colonizer?
And they're still... This is just a made-up thing. I have not seen a single example of there being like this disconnect between these white leftist content creators like ContraPoints, HBomber Guy, PhilosophyTube, and so on, and like the black leftist community.
Have you looked in the mirror?
Now, let's go by these point for point. First, black people are more homophobic than white people. This is true. There have been polls on this, as you can see. In 2019, only 51% of black people supported same-sex marriage, opposed to 62% of white people supporting same-sex marriage. Did they not look these statistics up, or do they have other evidence?
He brought up a false claim that black people are more homophobic than white people. It amazes me because the overwhelming majority of people who physically protested against gay marriage were poor and middle-class white Americans.
They do provide evidence. A clip of white people supporting a Chick-fil-A who has funded homophobic groups. Now the majority of these people are white, but as we have seen before, the raw numbers are not relevant when we talk about demographics. By this logic, there are also more pro-LGBTQ white people compared to pro-LGBTQ black people. The second clip is about reparations. The argument against Voss's ideology isn't further substantiated, but we'll come back to this later. The third clip is about colonization. Now it is time to establish how we as a society should look at different demographics on inheritable characteristics. The most commonly held belief is that all people should be treated equally under the law, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, nationality, religion, etc. This assumes that there is no inherent relevance to people's characteristics and actions they engage in. These characteristics are often genetic like race and sexuality. To take it a step further, the genetics of someone are never an answer to justify inequality. Racists often say 1350 to imply the inherent violence in black people, or how sexists will often imply that women are less reasonable than men by the amount of women in STEM fields. It is also possible to be sexist to men, by implying that men are inherently rapists. Nobody benefits by these simple explanations and is directly opposed to the value of equality. Let's play the clip again.
What is that?
And that's
So
still an issue.
300 years ago, their dad showed up, and they were born 18 generations later, and that means they're a colonizer?
And they're still
At first sight, this implies that being a colonizer is hereditary. It is used as something inherent to someone. In the second video, it is further specified who the colonizers are.
The fact of Vosh enabling a lot of anti-blackness in leftist spaces can't be overlooked. It's clear he doesn't see many Africans as indigenous, reducing them to solely being black, showcasing his racial bias to our plight. Divorcing the fact that many of these white people in South Africa's grandparents started apartheid and it barely ended in 1994. Vosh is applying America's "it's been over 400 years" straw man on South Africa to produce the fact that the white population there has a direct legacy to colonialism, which is why many would rightfully so call them colonizers since their imperialist great-grandpappies led the colonization in Africa.
This highlights the problem further. They think that the action of colonization is a legacy. It is what you are since you are responsible for your grandparents' mistake. However, it goes deeper than just a legacy. It is specifically referring to the white population in South Africa. It is not per se about colonizers, it's about calling white people colonizers. Now this may seem like a leap of logic, but before I made this video, I reached out in the comment section. I expressed concerns I had on their position. In these comments, they are specifying to only have spoken about white South Africans. However, they still think that there is a connection or a direct link that makes white people specifically responsible for their ancestors. I didn't get a response from Soulbunny to get a convo or response to the YouTube comment, but their audience did respond. And here we have a new argument. It is not simply the act of colonization or having colonialist ancestors. It can also be profiting from the action of colonization. I responded. Now, I made an analogy to expose the argument, but profiting from an action doesn't make you the person engaging in the action. If you profit off the sales of the book your parents wrote, that doesn't make you a writer. If you benefit from colonialism without the act of colonialism, that doesn't make you a colonizer. Let's steelman the idea that you're a colonizer if you benefit from colonization. An immigrant gets the same benefits from a country as a native citizen. In Europe, immigrants get the same right to healthcare as citizens, therefore benefiting from colonialism. Under this system, you can have a black South African still be a colonizer in the same scenario. This definition is so broad that almost everyone, black and white, is a colonizer. However, it is not about profiting off of colonialism. I can't deny the thoughtfulness of the commenter here. It makes it unfortunate that in their last sentence, the essentialism shows. You'll eventually see it's the colonialism that runs deep in your DNA. I will not attribute this opinion to Soulbunny, but it is clear that this is the audience they have attracted. It is essentialism in its purest form. It is not the actions you do. It's not the benefits you've gotten. It's plain and clear. It's your DNA. It's inherent to your race. It is racism. Now that it has been clear that these videos are racist, I can properly address the points that have been made in both videos. From this essentialist perspective, it is clear why they make the points they do. In both of the videos, there aren't a lot of ideological points being made. There are a lot of cases where Soulbunny is talking about race instead of the argument itself. The few examples shown aren't about the problems, but suggesting to listen to POC. The reason to disagree with black content creator isn't because they have dumb opinions. No, it is because the bait bros are racist, and that's final.
Long story short, I made a couple videos on how Vosh's audience, rhetoric, and behavior makes leftist spaces hostile to other black leftists who simply disagree with him.
And I recently ended up debating with him. But let's go over a short summary. Vosh and I start off talking about my video, where I say it's an issue that black people who disagree with Vosh are often compared to Nazis, and how that makes a hostile place for any black person that has the misfortune of disagreeing with him. I start by talking about how black people simply wanting their own spaces away from white people is not the same as segregationists. Vosh stands by his claim that they might as well be, and then we start talking about separatists along with colonialism. For about an hour, Vosh asks me if I think genocide is okay in the name of anti-colonialism, and compares the removal of colonizers to the Holocaust. He also makes the claim that I'm essentializing the white race with colonizers.
I'm gonna try this one more time. Do you think crime in America is a black problem?
Maybe you should try something else.
It's very telling that, at least from what I saw, that after the debate, Vosh got ripped into by black people. And it wasn't about leftism. It was about ending racist and colonialist rhetoric. And many black people from different political ideologies immediately recognized it as such and shut it down. If it's primarily black people and not white leftists who understand this rhetoric as racist, then it only makes sense that this kind of content would grow in a white leftist space.
And this problem with debate bros and their fandom, who understand make up a very significant chunk of left tube viewing, including my own, is the problem of most white left tube, both creators and consumers, which is for all of the theory and research and outward rejection of white supremacy on paper, the vast majority have not taken the time to dismantle the white racial frame through which they see the world. Even the ones that aren't technically white still operate very well within a white racial framework.
They're in constant battle, trying their hardest to be able to speak over BIPOC, down to using a BA to ignore BIPOC-led conversations.
Black people have some stupid fucking opinions on race. Yeah, absolutely. Fuck these people.
You let this happen. You watch this person shit on black people, and when black people spoke up, accuse us of cancel culture instead of Vosh being racist. You let this happen because you don't give a shit about us.
This is just a made-up thing. I have not seen a single example of there being like this disconnect between these white leftist content creators like ContraPoints, HBomber Guy, Philosophy Tube, and so on, and like the black leftist community.
Have you looked in the mirror?
But it's not only that white debate bros are racist. It is impossible to disagree with them, since they have the experience by being black to argue the positions they hold. As SDL pointed out with this tweet.
It has to include some specific quantitative data to be considered legitimate. And this is just like a fundamental misunderstanding of how evidence works within an argument, or what evidence is. And you can see it reflected in people who do debates and what they say. For example, there was a since deleted tweet by one of the worst of the debate lot. This is:
anecdotal evidence has no place in policy discussions. Empathy can and should help shape your goals, but anecdotal empathy cannot meaningfully inform you on what policies effectively achieve said goals, or how they do so.
And there was another one by the ironically named Know Nothing who tweeted this:
sorry, but I could not give less of a fuck about your lived experiences if we are having a policy discussion. Lived experience is just a woke repackaging of anecdotal evidence.
I can only point out that there may be a disconnect here in definitions. Validity depending on the context can mean many things. In argumentation and debates, it means that the conclusion of an argument follows from the premises. Commonly used, validity can also mean true or being accepted. You can have valid experiences and valid identities. However, using your experience or identity doesn't make your arguments valid. That would be itbull. Every argument or attempt to argue in these videos against white leftist debate bros have only been itbull. An actual rebuttal has never been given. The core of this line of argumentation has been seen not only in Soul Bunny's video, it is a broader trend in leftist spaces to deny the essentialist rhetoric and to use itbull as valid reasoning. Thank you for watching this video. This was part 1 of Philosophy of the Fringe Left. I want to do more content like this. It can be entertaining to get the baseline argumentation and call out flaws in philosophy. If you watch this and disagree with anything I said, feel free to email me or join the Discord to discuss. To everybody who's been mentioned in this video, from Professor Flowers to Soul Bunny to even the commenters in this video, even to the Duncan, you can all message me as well. I would be more than happy to talk to you about the positions you hold I'd like to hear back to everybody in my audience. Have a great evening, and again, thank you for